So today we're going to do wild garlic and cheese scones, and the beauty of these is you can go out and you can pick some wild garlic now. So if you want to go out isolated, don't go out in a crowd and all the rest of it, but if you want to go out while self-isolating, you can go out and you will find it, and it tends to be in wooded areas. So if the ground is slightly damp, slightly covered, copses, that kind of thing, and that's probably where you'll find it. So we need 450 grams of flour. I'm going to double it up, so I'm going to do 900, and that way you'll get a reasonable number of scones. No, go and lie down. So a little more, 900. Right, so 450 grams of flour. We want 25 grams of baking powder. It is quite a lot of baking powder, but you will find you get a decent rise in your scones if you use enough. The trick is to have enough baking powder that you get a rise, but not have so much that it tastes that kind of slightly bicarby sort of flavour to it. You want a little bit of salt. If nobody's got any allergens in your family, then you can have some, this is mustard powder. But if anyone's allergic to mustard, don't use it. It's simple as that. Now we want about 80 grams of butter. So need to weigh that out. Do it in fairly big chunks, because you want the mixer to mix it up, but you want it to be a little bit broken, but not too broken. So you've put everything in your bowl. You've got the butter, baking powder, flour, and mustard and salt. So now you need to make breadcrumbs. So the way to do this is to literally rub your hands through it. So you kind of pick it up, and I guess you're kind of breaking it up as you go along. I'm sure most of you will have done this, but if you haven't, you just kind of want to pick it up and break it up. And you're going to do this until they resemble breadcrumbs. Only I actually don't do that till they resemble breadcrumbs. I do it till you've got lumps the size of a pea. So if you go for a slightly larger lump, I have to say, lump of butter that is, I have to say I think you get a higher rise. So if you just keep doing that until you reach that stage. Right, so when you've finished this, and this is almost there, I would say, just a little bit more, and you want to raise your hands fairly high, get loads and loads of air in here because it makes a difference. So loads and loads of air. Right, I think that's pretty much there. So you've kind of ended up with it like that. So, you know, the butter's kind of that sort of size. Like that. Right, and then what you want to add is some wild garlic pesto. Now, this is literally wild garlic that I've picked. I've put it in the food mixer, not the food mixer, the food processor, and I've given it a blast, and that's what you end up with. And this, I should say, it freezes beautifully, so I tend to freeze it actually. And then you want to put in about a tablespoon. So that's a tablespoon of your wild garlic. It does smell, but it's not quite as strong as the as regular garlic, actually, I have to say. And then I would put in a handful. So that's what I would add, just literally a handful, because you're going to put some cheese on top as well. And then you want to add some whole milk. You can use skimmed, doesn't make much odds really if you want to use skimmed. I tend to use whole. I think whole's probably marginally better, but I don't think skimmed would hurt either, to be fair. So, and I use a knife to mix it. It just brings it together, and you don't particularly want to overhandle scones, so you're literally looking at bringing it together really with the knife. So, you know, it's kind of coming together like that. Pop a bit more in, it's not quite there yet. So I literally add milk, and it's probably about 200 mils, more or less. But I literally add it until it's right, because with different flours you find that they absorb liquid at different rates. So so I always do it by literally pouring it in and see what happens. But you're looking 250 mils, I would suggest, but it will vary quite a lot actually, depending on the flour you're using. But I mean, I have to say, generally I don't really measure it, and it just kind of comes together. You'll see. Let me just finish this and I'll show you. So when it's kind of together, it's sort of like that. Can you see? So it's just kind of rolling itself along. And then I'm going to get out a mat. So you want to put this on your mat. That's it. I mean, you will find there's a few bits of flour at the base, but you just add those in because it'll be fairly soft without it. So that's that. And then you don't want to knead it for very long. You just want to bring it together, because like I say, scones really don't agree with being overhandled, so it's no point doing that, because they end up a little bit flat. So you literally, like that is all I would say you want to do. You're literally bringing it together. And then you want to use a ruling pin. So you'll like that. A little more flour, not a lot, just a little more flour, and you've ended up with something that is pretty thick. So I'm just going to bring you down. So that is kind of how you want it. So that is about an inch thick, I would suggest. And then I've got my little fancy one. You can do whichever shape you like, but you want them kind of like that. So you do want them thick. And I know it, you feel like they should be thin, and you should just, if you do them thin and then they rise up. The reality is, if you don't cut them thick enough, they don't rise enough. I do get a variety of eggs, and I'm going to use a duck egg, mainly because I love the colour of them. Although actually that one's not quite as bright as they normally are. But you can use any egg, it doesn't make any difference at all. And you're actually going to cover it with cheese, to be fair, so it's not going to make a lot of odds. But I was given a duck egg, so I'm going to use a duck egg. Yeah. So you now want to glaze your scones. You see how bright that is, that bright yellow of the duck egg. So we're going to quickly do these. The beauty of these scones is they are pretty quick, to be fair. They are awfully cheap, and they're very filling actually. I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't like them. I make tons of them at the bakery. They're very, very popular. There's something rather lovely about wild garlic. It's if you ever see it, you know it's wild garlic because it smells like garlic. I mean, some people say, how do you tell? You can't miss it. You'll know it's wild garlic. And if it's, you really want it when it's young, but if it's not young, it doesn't make a lot of odds. You and then pop some cheese on these. You just pick out all the flowers, but the flowers are white. So yeah, if you get some with the flowers on, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter. I just prefer it when it's younger because it's slightly fresher and slightly well, there's not as much weed in it, to be fair, because it takes a lot of picking out and washing. But the thing is, if you've got it when it's young, it's beautiful, and it's more pungent, I think. I don't know why it is. Right, now we'll leave these to rest. Give them 20 minutes. Just leave them on the side. Come to no harm whatsoever, and just leave them. Pop the oven on, get the oven up to temperature, and then we'll come back and we'll... Right, so this is your wild garlic and cheese scones out the oven. They are lovely, beautifully risen. They're slightly green with the cheese on top. I got 14 out of mine because I did a double. If you do a half of that, which is the recipe on the website, you will get 7, maybe 8. Depends on the size of the cutters that you use. They're lovely served with cheese in the middle or with salad. Lovely with soup. So there you go. That's your wild garlic and cheese scones. So if you do go picking them this weekend, you need to remember to self-isolate. You might find some in your garden, and it tends to be the dark woody areas and slightly damp.